to think about this in Monty Python terms, and now for something completely different. My second headline was about cicadas.
Ooh.
And I actually,
I'm back in Ohio. Tell me all about cicadas.
I might have to come visit, honestly, depending on how the timing works. So I did not pick one headline on this because this is on a lot of people's minds all of a sudden, which is great, maybe. But there are a lot of headlines about how 2024 is going to be the year of the cicadas, what people keep saying. And this is because there are going to be 2 simultaneous emergences of periodical cicadas. So 2 different broods are going to come out at once. And I think there will be some geographical overlap between the 2 broods as well. So for folks who don't know, just a really quick, periodical cicada 101. So cicadas are these really neat, plant-sucking insects. And they live underground for some amount of time during their larval stages. And I think that the food that they eat is not super nutritious, so it takes them a very long time to grow. Years. They will literally be living for years, like plugged into a tree root, just drinking fluid. And so we have what are called annual cicadas. And if you live in an area that has cicadas, which is like a lot of the planet, usually they come out in the summertime. The adults emerge from the ground. They metamorphose into their adult form, and then they fly around and they make the males make loud noises in the trees, and they find each other and they mate and they make babies, and then the babies drop down and go underground, and it starts the cycle again. These annual species, the individuals that come out every year are always like 3 or 4 or 6 years old. It's just that because they come out every year, there's another generation every year of 6-year-olds or 5-year-olds or whatever it is that comes out, right? So even though they come out every year, it's not like they complete their life cycle in a year. Mm-hmm. These periodical ones have a slightly different life history where they will spend a really long time underground. And they will spend prime number amounts of time underground. So 17 years, 13 years, whatever it is. But the big difference is instead of like coming out every year, right? And there's that delay of 6 years, but there's always another generation because they're all staggered, so they come out every year. Instead of that, these ones all go at once. So every 13 years, they all come out. They all scream. They all breed. They all die, and then all the babies go underground, and then 13 years later, they all come up again, right? And there's a whole bunch of neat evolutionary ecology about it, but essentially their sort of strategy is there are so freaking many of us that the predators can't handle it. So enough of us survive every time to come back next time. But their whole biology is based around the fact that there are just bajillions of them. And to get into the actual numbers, these broods can be billions of individuals coming out all at once over the course of 3 to 6 weeks, something like that. They don't live super long. There are different broods within species, which are like these, recurring intervals if they come out every 17 years. And a lot of them are offset from each other. So we don't get, periodical cicadas every year. But every 3 to 4 to 7 years, like some brood somewhere in the country is going off. And you can go there and see crazy cicada action. I mean, just everything covered in cicadas. I've seen one in my life, which was 2021. I went to go visit Bob from the Nature Guys in Cincinnati during the Brood 10 emergence, which that was several different species of cicadas. And I mean, it was insane. Every tree, everything was just covered in cicadas. It was totally nuts. It was awesome. This year, there are 2 different broods, Brood 19 and Brood 13. Brood 19 has the nickname the Great Southern Brood, which sounds very promising. The 2 of them are going to be coming out at once, probably, I'm guessing, like May, June or something like that. And they're going to, be all over a bunch of the central U.S. And in the places where the two broods overlap, it is going to be pandemonium. I mean, it is going to be so many bugs. So I'm just really stoked on that. I'm looking up right now where some of the locations are. So brood 19, which is the Great Southern Brood, it's going to be Nashville, Tennessee, Charlotte, North Carolina, St. Louis, Missouri. Brood 13 is going to be hitting eastern Iowa, Illinois, Indiana, Michigan, southern Wisconsin. Wow. So Chicago's the biggest city that it'll be happening near. And then both of them are in are going to be overlapped in areas in Illinois, it looks like. That might be it. So Illinois might be the epicenter. I got to go make some more friends in that area.
Yeah. Go get some deep dish and go find some cicadas.
Yeah, I have heard that you can put these cicadas on a pizza and that it's quite nice. And I'm not, I don't think of eating animals when I first meet any kind of wildlife, but that could be pretty neat. And, if there are billions of them,
Sounds crunchy.
Yeah, it does, yeah. I mean, bugs can be delicious. I really, I'm not hating on them.
Can't say I've had too many voluntarily. Or willingly.
Yeah, you should try some. I went to an entomophagy conference many years ago, and it was really cool. Yeah. Eat some bugs, A lot of them taste like bacon. It's weird, but they do. Crunchy bacon with legs.
You went to an entomophagy conference.
Entomophagy.
Sorry, I am laughing at you.
I have it coming. I usually do. So that's all I got. Is this year's gonna be crazy for cicadas, and really hopeful, exciting stuff happening on the West Coast that I hope happens elsewhere.
Yeah, that's so freaking cool. Yeah, because I guess the talk here is already happening about the cicadas, and I grew up in a very rural place and surrounded by woods in a log cabin. And I remember when the cicadas would come out, they would have their exoskeletons all over,
oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
like our house.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember playing with them as like a little girl and like trying to bat them off off the house and like onto the ground and stuff, and in the trees and all kinds of stuff. Yeah.
And those were periodical. Did you run into?
Oh, I have no. There was one time. We were actually just talking about this. How funny. There was like one particular bloom of them that I remember as a little girl that was out of this world. So I'm 32 now, so it must have been like a 17 or 13 or something like that.
Sure.
Like a massive one.
Yeah.
Like it being, because like you said, they are annual, so there was cicadas every year, especially when it got really hot. Really hot summers.
Yeah. And the annual ones.
There's one particular.
For sure. I mean, you'll see annual ones in great numbers. If you're in a really, it sounds like you were in a pretty, countryside kind of place. If you're in a place with healthy forests, the annual ones are abundant enough. They will be all over.
Yes.
I mean, even just like in Athens, Georgia, where I am, we have like 6 or 7 different species of annual cicadas, and like they're freaking everywhere by late summer, and that is still nothing compared to these mass emergence broods. I mean, we're talking like the roads are paved with them, like.
Oh
every
my God,
house is
that
covered
crazy?
in them. Oh, it's nuts. And Brood X, I think, wasn't even that big. Even in Cincinnati, it was like, okay, yeah, it's a lot of cicadas, but like, this is like biblical stuff, like blotting out the sun, and you can't hear anything over it. I mean, it's
Are they
cool.
only reproducing? Do they actually consume anything? I mean, they're not acting like locusts, right? Like, the actual plague. Like is it just for like that is their reproductive body?
Mostly, yeah. So people, they do a lot more eating as babies. You are absolutely right, which a lot of insects do.
Mm-hmm.
Not all, but a lot. So people, this is where there's a lot of confusion, and I've been trying to clear this up on my blog I have a post about cicada biology, and people call them locusts. And that's because of how similar their numbers look to the biblical plagues and everything. But yeah, they don't. First of all, they don't have chompy mouth parts, so they don't chew on stuff and cause that kind of damage. They have a piercing mouth part for sucking plant juices. Yeah, and what I've heard across the board from entomologists is that the damage they cause to any kind of trees is really minimal from feeding. The biggest damage that they do is the way that females lay their eggs. And the females, after they've mated, will go out to the very tips of a tree's branches, which is the growing part, really. And they have these little like saw blades in their butt, and they will saw into the wood with their butt blades. Stay with me. And then with the little hole they saw it into the branch, they'll put a couple eggs in there, maybe one, maybe more, and then they'll move a couple inches and they'll do it again. So it's probably one egg per little furrow, but they'll fill a twig, not fill it, but they'll plant these little tiny eggs in there, and then that causes the end of the branch to die, and eventually it breaks off and it falls to the ground. And then the babies hatch, and then they crawl underground.
That's crazy life cycle.
It's insane. No, I mean, yeah, it's wild. But that can cause, for like if you have a fruit orchard or something like that, and they happen to go after your apple trees and cut a bunch of the tips off of the branches, I could see that being harmful. I don't think they go after apples and stuff very often. They do go for a lot of different trees, but yeah, so no, I would, I'm hearing a lot of people panicking about these bugs and saying that they're going to ruin crops and cause food shortages. They're not going to eat anybody's wheat. They're not going to touch soy or corn or oats or anything. Even the trees, it's going to be like, did they really do any damage? So, yeah, there's nothing to be afraid of, but it is crazy. I mean, if you're afraid of bugs, maybe then that's maybe you don't want to be around. If
there's an actual phobia involved, that would not be fun.
Because it is I love being around insects, and I was in the forests around Cincinnati, and I was like, this is totally insane. I was just walking around like, this is a staggering number of insects, just everywhere.
That was just my summer growing up. It's just like
just everyday life.